All right, welcome back. In case you just tuned in, you're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Now, parents, distraught students, critical stakeholders, and experts in education sector are worried that the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, have failed to get it right on how tertiary education should be run, devoid of needless altercation. Now, years of strikes by the ASUU have failed to right the wrongs and allowed dozens of Nigerian universities to discharge their primary responsibility of educating the people. Amidst all this, the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities and Non-Academic Staff Union of the university are set to join the strike if nothing is done. Now, National President, Senior Staff Association of Nigerian University, that's SSANU, Comrade Muhammad Ibrahim, joins us here in the studio to, give us his perspective on the issue. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Nice to be here.
All right, now we're hearing that the Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, that's SSANU, and the Non-Academic, Staff Union are threatening to embark on a strike. What are your grievances?
Well, it's nice to be here, and I commend you for the good job you've been doing.
Thank you.
Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SSANU, and NASU are the non-teaching arm of the 4 university-based unions. We have 4 based university unions, ASUU, SSANU, NASU, and NAT. And historically, in 2009, there was an agreement signed by these 4 unions with the federal government, basically on issues surrounding improvement in condition of service, and then payment of certain allowances to members of staff who work in this university, in the Nigerian universities, public universities. Now, within the framework of that 2009 agreement, a lot of issues that should have been history are still, not seeing the light of the day. And there is a proviso in the agreement that after every 3 years, even that 2009 agreement should have been renegotiated. But unfortunately, 12 years down the ladder, nothing of such is done. In fact, the worrisome part of it is that not even up to 40% of the 100% agreement that was reached has seen the light of the day by any of the 4 unions. Now, agitations naturally will crop up. And if you fast forward to October 2020, SSANU and NASU, under the umbrella of JAC, Joint Action Committee, went on strike, warning strike for 2 weeks. And government decided to invite us. We met with government and we had about 6 grievances. One is that immediately after the consummation and moving us to the Integrated Payroll Personal Information System, IPPIS, meaning payment of salaries of staff or staffers in all the universities, were now done by the federal government directly from IPPIS office under the Office of the Accountant General. Staff members in the universities started having issues. One, either the payments were not made as at when due, or payments were done haphazardly, and then you realize also salaries were mutilated, salaries were fractured, vice chancellors were paid salaries of cleaners, cleaners were paid salaries of registrars, bursars were paid salaries of security men. So a lot of things, and some people were completely not paid. As I'm talking to you, we still have people who have not accessed their salaries for close to 6 months in some universities. Then outside that, we also had the issues about the non-payment of the minimum wage arrears. In 2019, government enacted a law to pay new minimum wage to civil servants and public servants. Now, members working in the universities are public servants, and automatically we were supposed to have been captured and be paid immediately. But it took 10 months before the payment started. That was in March 2020. Now, the 9 or 10 months arrears that was supposed to have been cleared, till today, it has not been cleared. So people have complained, unions have made their complaints, and it did not even stop only among the university staff, but staffers from colleges of education, polytechnics, and the universities were the ones that were sidelined. Other core public civil servants were all paid, the arrears and have been cleared. Outside that, also had issues surrounding members of staff in the non-teaching arm who work in the state universities. Of late, you would have seen that a lot or some of the state governors have been competing among themselves, establishing universities left, right, and center. You have a state that is struggling to pay, salaries to other civil servants and taking charge of other issues, establishing more universities. One state having 2, 3 state universities outside the federal universities that exist in that state. And then members of our unions started having issues about their salaries. Just yesterday, I had cause to mention that our members in Ambrose Ali University in Epoma, Edo State, were not paid for close to a year.
Sorry, I need to ask a question there. You talked about state governors bringing up universities, and then, we have the federal government universities, which, of course, you have members across all of these universities. And one point I want to make is that I just want a clarification. The NUC gives license to most of these universities. So isn't there a unification between the 4 unions in all of these universities?
Well, NUC's role is actually a regulatory body.
Okay.
And like I also mentioned at another place, is that what we are made to understand, NUC cannot deny licensing any university. To the extent that if, for example, the 774 local governments in Nigeria wants to establish university, the law in NUC does not stop them from issuing license once they meet the criteria for establishing such universities. But it is one thing to establish a university and it's totally another to run it effectively. So these are some of the problems. Now, those unions are there to cater for the welfare and well-being of members of staff who work within the system. Like I mentioned, the teaching staff have what they call ASUU. The senior non-teaching staff has SSANU, we have NASU, and then we have the technologists who work in the laboratories. Now, we operate independently. Every union is there to cater and ensure that the welfare and well-being of its members is protected. Now, the plethora of establishing, or the news, normal of establishing universities is not the solution to what we think should be, because it's not the number of universities that should matter, but the number of universities that will be able to undertake what they are supposed to do, primary assignments. Universities are supposed to conduct researches, teach, and then also extend some services to the community, whether within their precincts. Now, you are all aware that a lot of us have been complaining that we have been dishing out half-baked graduates in our universities. This may not be totally wrong, or it may not be totally false, because the universities are not well funded. There is no way you can have a university without funding it effectively. And part of the funding is beyond having structures of classrooms and labs, but also ensuring that members of staff who teach, who administer, who do security services, who take charge of these students when they are in the hostels, when they go to clinic if they fall sick, and other services they need are also paid as at when due, and that the rules of engagement given to them or assigned or agreed with them by the government is also done in a way that they will also feel that at the end of the month they will be able to take home their pay and take care of their families.
Okay. Now, you talked about, operating independently, yet, your demands are quite similar with that of ASUU. And then we've seen in the past that most times, it's usually when ASUU comes out, to protest, and, fight for, what they deserve, that SSANU, follows suit. How is that, and why is that?
That is a total misconception, and it's totally false.
Okay.
We are not an appendage of any union. And if for any reason and by coincidence, our struggle or our agitation happens to come at the same time, it's just a matter of coincidence. But SSANU does not wait, or NASU does not wait for any union to go on strike or to agitate before we do so. This is because, like I said, we are a registered trade union, we are an affiliate of NLC, we have our license to operate, and we do not need anybody to prompt us to do anything that we do. But like I said, what we have today as part of our grievances is the lack of fulfillment of signed MOUs and MOS. I have said that in October 2020, government sat with us, not with ASUU or with other unions, but sat with JAC, made up of SSANU and NASU, to agree that these problems that I have listed and others were to be taken care of within 6 weeks. For example, what I did not mention to you was that we realized that we were shortchanged in the payment of the earned allowances, and that government did promise to give the JAC of NASU and SSANU the sum of 30 billion naira. Until today, since October 2020, less than 8 billion naira was released. And then, like I mentioned, the issue of the minimum wage arrears, which is also something that should have been cleared off and forgotten, and that we universities have been asked to collect and submit their data and make their claims very clear, and we have done so. We have submitted to the budget office, and we've been waiting, and these things have not come on board. Outside that, we also did complain. We may have some similarities in our demands, like you mentioned, the issues about the lack of having visitation panels to visit universities and
IPPIS
investigate.
and
Now, then government did constitute those committees, and the exercise was done. But till today, we have not also seen the white paper telling us the outcome of the assignment taken on the visitation panel.
Okay.
And then the renegotiation, which we have been agitating for, that I told you that at the end of every 3 years, as agreed in 2009, unions such as ours will again meet with government to appraise the implementation of what was agreed, and then with a view to moving forward to understand that whether there was need to improve on what was agreed or to delete or add, as the case may be. So SSANU is an independent body. We are not an appendage of any union, and that we do not wait for any union to prompt us to agitate for our members.
Okay.
This is very clear.
You did say that when the minimum wage, when the enactment of the Minimum Wage Act was, out there, people started implementation, but it was 10 months after that the implementation, and then till date the arrears are yet to be paid.
Yes.
Okay, so one of the things you mentioned also was the meeting with the federal government, that's around 2020 October precisely.
We had another one in February 2021.
Yes, so and the problem, one of the bone of contention there was the IPPIS, which of course the university system has provided a solution to that. That is the UTAS, which the federal government has a problem with. Now, the IPPIS, according to the unions, is not serving the purpose which is being set up for. And the UTAS, of course, the federal government has a problem with that it's not visible. I can hear some people say things about the UTAS. So could there be a compromise at the end of the day where the IPPIS becomes what is being used and not the UTAS? Can there be a compromise at some point?
Well, clearly, IPPIS is not serving us as members of staff in the universities. And the unions under the umbrella of JAC, NASU and SSANU have clearly sat down to look at the situation, and we have now proffered a better solution. If it is the issue of centralizing payment and ensuring that payments are made seamless and that peculiarities of university is, brought to bear, we have today created what is called the 3Ps, U3Ps, the University Peculiar Payroll and Payment System.
That's aside from the UTS.
UTAS is a product of ASUU,
okay,
which I am not competent to speak about because I do not know anything about it.
Okay.
But the two other unions have also come up with something that will take and replace IPPIS for us.
So
and
does
we have written
ASUU agree?
government.
Does ASUU agree with SSANU on this one?
Well, we have not been able to sit on the same table with them to discuss that.
Okay.
And I wouldn't want to accuse anyone.
So don't you see a disparity between the two? UTAS being presented by ASUU, and then we have the
U3PS.
Yes, from NASU.
Well, for us, you should have also known that in the university system, it is the unions comprising of SSANU and NASU that have the staff that pay salaries, prepare salaries, pay salaries, and administer the universities. So who is more competent to bring a solution to what affects payment of salaries?
So now that's the problem, because this should have been, thought of, set aside before meeting the federal government and presenting UTAS.
What I've just said is that we were not consulted when UTAS came on board. It's a product of our sister union called ASUU.
Okay.
We have our own U3PS, which we have written government that we are ready to present as a solution to solve the problems militating against the effective running of universities in terms of payment of salaries and allowances. And that, like I have said, in our union, we have bursary staff whose duty is to prepare payroll and pay. If government wants to pay, we are giving them an IT solution that will pay. Because what is happening with IPPIS is that IPPIS was done to cater for the civil service. And under IPPIS, there are certain allowances that are peculiar to university system that is non-existent in the IT solution. For example, areas where you have the privilege of going on sabbatical leave. In IPPIS, if you are working in University A and you happen to go to University B, which is allowed by the law establishing universities and the agreement signed by government, you are not going to access any allowances or privileges that is supposed to go to you. Universities cannot run without having adjunct professors, teachers who come from abroad, teachers who come from other universities to also come and teach, senior members of academic staff who also will go on sabbatical to share knowledge and acquire new skills, are not supposed to be removed from the payroll of their mother university if they are doing sabbatical in another university. They are still supposed and they are allowed by the rules of engagement to also enjoy certain allowances from the two universities. And then also the flexibility of making payments at a point that is required. Universities are run at the speed of light, naturally. You don't wait for the bureaucracy. If you want to employ somebody, for example, today, you will have to wait for somebody somewhere in the ministry to give you approval, to come back, have interview. People are competing. University is universal. If you have somebody who is competent, who is adequately prepared to do a job, the universities hire him and immediately his services are engaged. It's just like a breach of private sector. But under the IPPI system, that is not possible, because for everything that you will do, you need to run to Abuja, you need to get approval, you need to be enrolled biometrically, and then a lot of bureaucratic reptificism is involved, and therefore the system is no longer moving at the speed that it should. And that is why the universities are becoming more and more problematic in terms of running its affairs.
Okay.
Look at the example of the issue of the energy sector today. Universities are virtually run on diesel because there is no electricity. Now, how much do you think the universities will spend to run even one faculty or even an administrative block, without this flexibility of having access to their funds as at when due?
Okay. Now, aside, going on strike, isn't there any other option, to have your demands met? Because over the years, we've seen, so many strikes, and then, the students seem to be the ones at the receiving end. And there are actually reports that, these students are right now, due to the strike, embarking on skills acquisition and, almost giving up on the, education sector in Nigeria.
When I speak about strikes, I speak with a lot of emotions because I'm also a parent and I feel the pulse of every other parent. And because we work also in that kind of environment, we also know that the students are not happy. Nobody is happy. And that is why SSANU as a union, and with our sister union called NASU, we are the last that you will hear speak about strikes because we know. They say he who wears the shoe knows where it pinches. There is no way you can sit, unfortunately, and see that you are being denied your own rights and privileges and you will not agitate. Strikes are legal. Strikes are a product of the law. And there are processes and procedure of going on strike. For government to have sanctioned that the unions are free, the labor law allows that unions can withdraw, or members of staff can withdraw their services, and that is what is called strike. In SSANU, for example, we did not just jump one day to declare strike. We have had protests in our campuses, we have written government, we have lobbied key officers of government, we have also now given a notice which will terminate by the 27th of this month, which is a Sunday, by 12 midnight, that if by that date our agitations, our complaints are not looked at, are not solved, we will withdraw our services for 2 weeks at the first instance. Failing which, we will now have to go back to the drawing board and then also take our destinies into our hands. When you hear SSANU or NASU going on strike, it is something that has become inevitable. Not because we want to go on strike, because we are also part of the community. We are Nigerians and we feel for the students. It is quite sad, it is avoidable, and we're urging on government to ensure that they don't allow this situation to deteriorate to the level of closing down the system completely. But people must eat. We must feed our families.
Exactly.
We must take care of our own kids. We must take care of our health. We must, attend to other needs of our families and ourselves. And that is why we are agitating.
SSANU calling in for a strike, SSANU and ASUU calling in for a strike will bring a total halt to the university education, tertiary institutions in the country. And of course, this agitation, it's really worrisome. We are worried because SSANU, NASU occupy strategic positions in the universities, and without their input or without them coming to work, even the ASUU cannot even operate. Can't go to schools and not have administrative staff and all that.
Okay. All right. With that, we will be wrapping up this discussion. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak and sharing your perspectives on, the happenings, especially in the education sector. Thank you. All right, so that was National President, Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SSANU, Comrade Mohammed Ibrahim. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll move on to the next discussion.